So how does this apply today? What is the significance of this chapter? Why are we still reading this book? I really want us to try to understand what the relevance is, whether you like it or not, whether it seems important to you or not. Let's talk about how this book could really shed some light on debates that are ongoing in our society and decisions that we have to make as informed citizens. So I want to just do a profile overview of what it looks like to be an immigrant woman today, what kind of jobs they have, how they're treated, what they can kind of expect for the trajectory of their life, and see if it compares at all to Antonia and her experience. So let's get started. I have a few things that I just want to show us with some statistics, and I'm really going to just like launch it back and let you do some interpreting and some analysis to see kind of what you think is important. Okay, so let's start by looking at this article that's very recently published, March 4th, Immigrant Women and Girls in the United States. And we'll do kind of an overview, and then I have some other tabs that give more specifics. So women and girls made up slightly more than half of the 44.7 million immigrants residing in the U.S. in 2018. The female share of foreign-born population is higher in the U.S. than globally. So one explanation is that close to 2/3 of the global migrant population is made up of migrant workers who are more likely to be male and who often aren't allowed to bring their families along. So in contrast, family reunification dominates U.S. immigration flows. What that means is that of the people in the U.S. who are immigrants, documented workers are not legal citizens, they're migrant laborers, and they are bused from the border generally of a Mexican or Latin American country. And so they are bused in for work, and then they are bused home. During that time with men, they are not residing in the United States as immigrants. They are continuing to move back and forth as foreign residents, not U.S. legal immigrants. I guess that's a definition we really need to establish at first. What is an immigrant? An immigrant is somebody who is born in another country that becomes a legal citizen of the United States or a legal resident of the United States. And that is not the case for many men. Mostly it's the women who do that. Immigrants represent 14% of all female residents in the U.S. As mothers, workers, and students, they make important contributions to local communities, the economy, and society. They come from a diverse origin and linguistic backgrounds, and they have varied levels of education and work experience, which shapes their economic integration. And their experiences in the U.S. compared to immigrant men and U.S.-born women kind of vary with regard to their labor opportunities, their family structure, their gender roles, and more. So let's get into some of these statistics from the U.S. Census Bureau's 2018 projections. So where do they tend to come from? Most immigrant women living in the United States come from let's see, it says overall immigrants from the Caribbean, South America, Asia, and Europe are more likely to be women, while those from Mexico and Central America are more likely to be men. So that's an interesting statistic. 60% of immigrants from the Philippines are female. And immigration flows from the Dominican Republic have historically been female dominated, whereas the opposite is the case for immigrants from Mexico. The female share among Dominican immigrants has been consistent. Mexican-born immigration since 1980 has been increasing over 3 decades. So we're going to move on. Most immigrant women are between the ages of, or there's some averages of 47 and 39 respectively. Immigrant women are significantly more likely to be of working age than those who are in their native-born residence. Children born in the U.S. to immigrant women kind of skew this population as well. And 27% of U.S.-born females are under the age of 20, whereas only 7% of female immigrants are under the age of 20. So they're basically middle age. So with Antonia, you see sort of a younger immigrant population coming over. This does not tend to be the case, that we have a lot more older working age women who are slightly older than the men. So, as a whole, they're likely to be married, less likely to be separated, divorced, widowed, or single. So that's another difference between today and my Antonia. Um, this talks about whether they're more likely to give birth to children or not, and their education, because they tend, if you look over this, it says because they tend to be older, they are more working age and less, they're not pursuing an education as much. So they have limited English proficiency, and then their and that's again a similarity between Antonia. She had to learn the language when she came here. Employment occupations. So immigrants participated in civilian labor force for higher rates than native-born individuals. So more immigrant women are working than actually domestic-born women, interestingly enough. And as of 2018, there were more than 11.9 million workers who were immigrant women, comprising 16% of all female workers and 8% of U.S. civilian workers. That's 36% of immigrant women are employed in management, business, science, and arts occupations. They're as likely as U.S.-born men to be employed in management, business, science, etc. So we'll get into kind of what occupations they have later. They fared worse on poverty measures than either immigrant men or the native-born population, so they tend to be impoverished, which again would be similar to what we saw in the book. Single parenthood is a strong predictor for poverty. Single mothers in particular encounter significant financial hardship, and almost a quarter of single mothers, regardless of nativity, lived in poverty compared to single fathers. So this is kind of just, like I said, a big overview. Let's look more at the occupations that they tend to have. So this is a chart of where women tend to work. 2/5 of immigrant women earn low wages, and this is kind of a wage distribution chart. But here's what they tend to do. Maids and housekeepers account for the largest number of immigrant women workers, followed by nursing, psychiatric, and home health aides. So there are 882,663 reported workers in the housekeeping and like doing domestic jobs like housekeeping and maids. So that would stay consistent with what happened in my Antonia. They're still doing those domestic things. So like washing, cooking, maintaining, cleaning, all of that sort of traditional labors. And then these are aid positions. No, not that they are nurses. There are some that become nurses, but they're aides for nursing and psychiatric facilities. Janitors, building cleaners, personal care aides, cooks, child care workers, retail salespersons, secretaries, and administrative assistants. So if you look at that, it's very similar to what we see in the book. And this is today. These are some jobs most likely to be filled by an immigrant. The first is personal appearance workers, 63%. I had to look that up. It basically means that they work in the industry of like doing hair or nails or massage therapy or some type of like a body care position. So there you have that. Graders or supporters of agricultural products. So this would be people who work in agriculture. So 60% is quite close to the 63. Plasterers and stucco masons, 59%. Sewing machine operators, agricultural workers, maids and house cleaners, tailors, dressmakers, sewers, drywall and ceiling tile installers and tapers, taxi drivers and chauffeurs, media and communication workers. So again, so similar with like the hands-on working responsibility. We can't go through this without looking at these statistics as well, is that human trafficking is another form of abuse endured by immigrant women and children. The U.S. Department of Justice estimates that each year 50,000 people are trafficked into our nation. U.S. officials grant up to 5,000 visas to help free immigrant women who are forced into the sex trade. But studies find barely any are being granted. In 2012, only 674 visas were approved. And so immigrant women are extremely vulnerable still to sexual predatorial actions. And I think when people I mean, what is this? Um, we have to understand that a lot of things that are produced, pornography, any type of like a sexual video or image, may not be from a free agent or somebody who has volunteered to be in that business. Oftentimes, these people are in a trafficked trade or industry, and a large majority of immigrant women get into this because of the promise of quick or easy money, and then the drugs come, and really you have to study this industry to understand how terrible and awful it is. But there's still that really strong connection between sexuality and the poor immigrant woman. And so what do we do with it? What do you see all these statistics, you see these facts. Do you care? Does it matter that women are still coming into this country and doing sort of the domestic jobs, the labor, the things that domestic born citizens aren't doing as much? How many people do you know that are working in hotels, that are working in the hospitality industry as cooks or dishwashers? What about people packing apples or working in the fields, the long, hard hours? What about, I mean, the hospital aides and assistants who are cleaning up bodily fluids that are just disgusting. Those are the type of jobs that women have. And with immigration reform that wants to push immigrants out of our country and not grant visas or not grant citizenship, what would become of those jobs that those women fill? And is it right for those women to fill those jobs? Or should they have more opportunity? And when we read My Antonia, they don't have any more opportunity. They have to work because their families don't have money. And so how do you process all of this? And is it enough just to be like, well, whatever, like, I'm not going to think about it. It doesn't matter. It's not impacting me. But it is impacting at least, millions of immigrants that come to this country every single year. And as a voting member, soon to be, when you turn 18, voting member of our society, what is your responsibility and what is your take? Is this acceptable? Is this fair? Should something be done about it or not? So those are the questions you get to pursue in terms of application for this book.